Never underestimate the quiet ones. Sometimes the most faded coats hide the brightest stars. Watch carefully, this story will prove it. Sir, you can't sit here. This section is reserved. The usher's tone was polite but clipped, his hand blocking the aisle near the first 3 rows of velvet chairs. The man he was addressing paused. He wasn't dressed like the glittering crowd flowing into the opera hall, no tuxedo, no polished shoes. Instead, he wore a plain, worn-out coat, its sleeves frayed at the cuffs, its fabric dulled with years of use. His trousers sagged slightly at the knees, and in his hand, folded carefully, was a creased ticket stub for Rosie. The back. He didn't argue. Didn't speak. Just nodded. Slowly, he turned, following the usher's guiding hand toward the farthest corner. As he moved, a few heads turned. A woman in pearls whispered something behind her gloved hand. A young officer in uniform chuckled quietly, shaking his head. To them, he was invisible, a shadow among the chandeliers, a misplaced figure in a hall of wealth and importance. Speech balloon. Before we go further, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing people from all over the world here. By the time he reached Rosie, the lights had dimmed. The orchestra tuned, strings trembling like nerves before battle. The man sat, back straight despite his age, hands folded in his lap. His eyes, sharp but weary, never left the stage curtain. The usher returned to his post, muttering under his breath, "Not for people like that." He didn't notice the faintest flicker of a smile on the man's lips. As if he'd heard it all before. Minutes later, the chandeliers dimmed fully, and the first note of the orchestra swelled like a wave. The curtains parted to reveal not performers, but a massive screen. The announcer's voice filled the hall, deep and deliberate. Tonight, we gather not only for music and celebration, but for remembrance. For sacrifice. The screen flickered alive, black and white at first, grainy footage of helicopters lifting into smoky skies, soldiers wading through dust storms, medics dragging wounded comrades under fire. The laughter and whispers in the audience faded. The air thickened. And then, the image changed. A younger man, in desert fatigues, stood on the screen. His face steady, his eyes resolute. A chest glinted with medals. The usher froze mid-breath. His hand dropped from the velvet rope. He looked back, slow, toward Rosie. His stomach sank. The man sitting quietly in the shadows was the same man on the screen. Murmurs rippled. Guests craned their necks, pointing, whispering. The announcer continued. "Ladies and gentlemen, the one we honor tonight is among us, not in the front row, but in silence at the back. Decorated Navy SEAL Commander David Hale." Clapping hands, the hall erupted. Applause thundered off the high arches, echoing like artillery. Patrons in gowns and uniforms rose to their feet. The man in the worn coat shifted uncomfortably, as if the weight of all those eyes pressed harder than any battlefield ever had. Loudspeaker, if this moment shocks you as much as it shocked them, hit the like button. It helps more people see this story. For the first time all evening, his gaze lowered. Humility disguised in silence. A sharp voice cut through the applause. "Hold it!" The sound of polished shoes against marble echoed as a tall figure in dress uniform strode down the aisle. His chest was heavy with medals, for stars gleaming on his epaulets. The general. He didn't stop at the stage. Didn't bow to the dignitaries. He went straight to the back row. The hall hushed. Every eye followed. When he reached the man in the worn coat, he stopped, and his voice carried like a command across the hall. "Commander Hale saved my entire team when I was nothing but a green recruit. I would not be standing here tonight if not for him. He does not belong in the shadows. Gasps, then silence. Then, applause again, louder, deafening. The general extended his hand, firm, unshakable. With hesitation, the commander rose, taller now than he had seemed sitting, the quiet strength of someone who had faced far worse than whispers. The velvet rope was lifted. The usher stepped aside, head bowed, cheeks burning with shame. "Sir," he whispered, "forgive me." The commander offered only a faint smile. "You were doing your job." Together, he and the general walked forward. Each step echoed in the marble hall like history correcting itself. The stage lights no longer belonged to the orchestra. They belonged to the man who had endured the back row without complaint. The night ended not with music, but with the truth whispered among all present: never underestimate the quiet ones. Sometimes, the most faded coats hide the brightest stars. Clapperboard if this story touched you, don't just keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs the reminder. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe now and join our community.